Dear guests, please take your seats, and dear panelists, please join the panel. Dear panelists, guests of the forum, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the session. My name is Igor Alexiev. I will moderate the session. I am from BCG Energy, global consultancy firm. And it's a great honor for me to moderate such a distinguished panel. Energy has become one of the defining topics for Central Asia, long-term development, and it's especially true here in Uzbekistan. Today, Mr. President at the plenary particularly mentioned green energy transition as one of the key drivers for the long-term development of the country. Over the years, Uzbekistan has already taken critical first steps, attracting investments and deploying renewable generation at pace. For example, in 2025, solar and wind supplied over 10% of the country's electricity, more than twice as level of 2024. But more difficult questions lie ahead. Today, with senior officials, industry leaders, and financial institutions, we will explore this transition, what it requires, and the challenges along the way. Let me introduce our distinguished panelists. First of all, our host, Mr. Umit Mamadaminov, Deputy Minister of Energy of Uzbekistan. Mr. Abid Malik, President of Aqua Central Asia. Ms. Mariam Rashid Al-Mazroui, Associate Director, Masdar. Mr. Takifumi Nishikawa, Chief Operating Officer, Sojitz. And Shuli Kilic, Director Head of EBRD Eurasia. And the last but not the least, Sama Bilbao y Leon, Director General, World Nuclear Association. Let me set the scene with a few numbers, a couple of slides from us. Please. Driven by economic and population growth, Uzbekistan domestic electricity consumption is projected to rise from 71 to 123 terawatt hours by 2035. It's impressive growth by 73% at least. The growth is broad-based. Industry remains a major driver, growing at over 7% a year on the back of investments in key industries, such as mining, construction, chemicals, and automotive. Residential demand keeps rising with population and incomes and the shift from gas to electric heating. And the fastest growing segment is transportation, as electric mobility continues to expand. And on top of that, we also expect demand from emerging energy-intensive IT sectors, such as data centers and AI, also mentioned today at the plenary. The question for the country is no longer whether the demand will grow. The question is whether the energy system can evolve quickly enough to support that growth. To meet this demand, the country has set its energy master plan. The scale of the transformation is significant and impressive. Installed generation capacity more than doubles in 10 years, from 26 to 58 gigawatt, with additions led by wind, solar, but complemented with the country's first nuclear capacities. Battery storage capacities grow more than 3 times, from 1.2 to 4.4 gigawatt. And the high voltage transmission network expands from 12 to 20 1,000 kilometers. Very impressive challenge for the energy system. And the key question here is how to build a resilient, flexible, and investable energy system to meet these challenging numbers. Hence, equally important to have not only generation capacity, but all the enablers around it. And it brings us to the 5 challenges we will explore today. First one, delivering new capacities on schedule while maintaining system stability. The key question, I believe, for the government, how to ensure sustainable power supply for the country. Strengthening system-level infrastructure, all about the grid storage that tie all together within the energy system. It's also required to think and develop capabilities to balance and dispatch a grid with a much higher share of new renewables, including real-time digital control system. Developing skilled workforce to design, build, and operate the system. We will also discuss today. Modernizing market mechanisms and regulations, wholesale, retail, capacity markets, and network tariffs that unlock and bring investors in the country. From the government and regulatory standpoint, the goal is to balance energy security and affordability. But from the investor standpoint, the questions are equally important. How can the region and the country particularly mobilize capital at scale? And what makes this project truly bankable? They're exactly the questions we will explore today during the panel. So let me turn to our speakers, and let me begin with our host country. Let me pass a word to Mr. Mammadamidov, who gives us national perspective on both the scale of transformation and the challenges. Please.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the great question and great topic. And you know, Uzbekistan has achieved remarkable results last few years, especially in energy industry. Especially we bring a lot of investments, billions of dollars investments in renewable energy. Also installed huge capacities of the renewables last few years. And now we have next about 6 to 10 years, we have huge challenge. I would say for the challenge is to create a power grid which hosts that new types of the intermittent grid capacity into power grid. What I mean that, because those renewable capacities, solar, wind, as I always tell, they're all intermittent. They are not controllable in the resource side. That's why the grid must be ready for that, the power grid. That's why our big challenge is to create flexible, resilient power grid to accept such big quantities of the renewable capacity. For that, what are the key points that we need to consider for next 10 years, 10 or maybe 8 years, I would say. First of all, creating infrastructure, transmission lines, distribution system modernization to deliver this power to the central demand side. Transmission line. Second is reserve capacities. Reserve capacities need, which is battery energy storage systems, which price significantly dropped last few years, and also some CCGT small plants, which is flexible power plants to support the grid as a reserve capacity. And also we have small hydro. We don't have big potential, but we will develop the hydropower plants also, pumped hydro storage or other types of hydro potentials to use reserve capacities. You have to have at least 25 to 30% reserve capacity ready on site in order to integrate such renewable. Some people say 50%, but it's manageable with the right coordination. 25% is manageable. Then next is the third one is digitalization. We have to digitalize, because those systems for power, for wind power, for solar power, you need advanced forecasting systems. You need advanced automation, control systems in order to control. You cannot control those systems by over the phone or like old way. Everything is automated, and you will have huge data, and data you have to implement AI. Now, wherever you have a data, you have to implement AI systems. That's really important. And the fourth pillar, I would say the regional development, integration neighboring countries. This is key issue because we need to coordinate with all neighboring countries to create coordinated platforms for the balancing market, for power trade, to create a coordinated system with us. We are already doing this with our Central Asian countries by the World Bank Remit project or by ADB balancing market. We are starting some projects, and also we are working with our famous project is the Green Corridor project, which is not new thing. I always tell this is undersea cable project is already in the European countries. We have available projects. It's not new stuff. So we are going to do this project to deliver power, excess power from Central Asia to Europe. That's all. That's 4 pillars. That's really important, because grid, again, I will repeat it. Green must be ready to host such big generation capacities. The next thing is not creating the megawatts like generation capacities. Next thing is create the grid, resilience grid to make it a sustainable power system. Thank you.
Maybe a quick question from me.
Yeah.
You mentioned infrastructure, you mentioned generation, but what about market mechanisms that could actually be like the way we finance this, a lot of investments? What are the changes of regulation?
For the infrastructure?
For both in generation, maybe infrastructure, wholesale market, tariffs for new grid, capacity payments, etc. Any ideas, any?
Market reforms, we already started. We have EMDRA, Energy Market Development Agency, already started phase by phase, step by step. We are generating I think by the end of next year, we will have a wholesale electricity market will be online. Then we will move to more deep into the market reforms. All pipeline is there, so we will gradually move to open the competitive marketplace there.
And maybe another on-the-spot question.
Sure.
Yeah. Last week, that was like announcement of a nuclear and first concrete already there. So how you see the role of the nuclear in the energy system? We will come back to this question later, but
that's
maybe
a really good question. I would say I forgot to tell the 5th one is base load. You need to have base load in order to coordinate, because when there is no sun, when there is no wind, what you do? You have to use base load, right? Base load should be clean, green energy. Clean energy is what? Nuclear energy. We have hydro, we have nuclear, right? Nuclear is the best solution for the base load. And it's now the safest technology available already. That's why, thanks our presidential reforms, presidential initiatives, a couple of weeks ago, we started building the integrated nuclear power plant, which is 2 small SMRs and 2 big the units.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Minister, for such a comprehensive and maybe the most important transparent vision of the further development. But now let me bring in the developers who are turning these plans into reality. Mr. Malik, ACWA is one of the world's leading developers, investors and operators of power, water desalination and green hydrogen across multiple regions. You were also one of the earliest investors, like significant, massive investors in the country, in Uzbekistan, particularly in the energy sector. Looking back at your journey here, what are the most important milestones? What comes next? And how would you describe Uzbekistan evolution of the energy sector? And maybe if you have time also, ACWA is very well known for creating value beyond the projects themselves. Can you also elaborate what are your initiatives in the country related to the capability building, knowledge and education? I know there are a lot of them. Please.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for having us here, for giving us an opportunity to express our views on this panel, and thanks to the audience for being here. It's a very interesting topic, which has been selected now for this forum. I think let me introduce first who we are. Aqua is a leading developer, investor, operator of power, desalinated water, green hydrogen, and our facilities in storage. Aqua has the total number of projects that are under Aqua management is 109 projects spread over 15 countries around the world. For the projects that are under construction, operation, or advanced development, we have the ability to produce close to 100 gigawatt. When I say close to 100 gigawatt, it's actually 96 gigawatt right now. And inshallah, within the next few months, there are few other projects which we are developing. We will do a century mark of 100 gigawatt soon. The total projects which I explained to you in these 110 projects around 15 countries and 100 gigawatt, the total projects cost or investment cost is close to 121 billion US dollars. We are by far the largest desalinated water producer in the world. We have the ability, again, as I said, the projects under construction, operations, or advanced development, we have the ability to produce 10 million cubic meter of water per day. For those, because in this part of the world, desalination water may not be a very familiar thing here, but in our part of the world, in Middle East, in Gulf, and now in Africa, and in Azerbaijan, there's a lot of awareness going on the importance of water, because water is life. And this 10 million cubic meter of water is actually equivalent to the total water consumption. I'm talking about potable water jointly together in France, Spain, and Greece. So these three countries, if you look at it, consume a potable water of close to 10 million cubic meter of water. In addition to power and water, we are the only company, we are proud to claim the only company who have green hydrogen project, either in construction, in operation. As we speak now, the project in NEOM, the very famous project, inshallah, when it will be constructed soon, it will have the ability to produce 200,000 tons per year of green hydrogen that will be exported from Saudi Arabia to Europe and other markets. In Uzbekistan, we have recently implemented 3,000 tons per year, very small pilot scale in Uzbekistan near Tashkent, and we are actually working very closely with the government to produce more green hydrogen for the petrochemical. So that's about Aqua. Coming back to your question, Igor, the history of Aqua in Uzbekistan started back in 2020 when we signed our first project, and that was in Sirdarya, which is a gas-to-power, combined cycle power project of 1,500 megawatt. That was the first project we were given the opportunity to construct and develop, basically, and construct and operate, which we, alhamdulillah, we completed it thanks to our lenders, EPC contractors, and one of the lenders is here, EBRD is here. In addition to EBRD, there are many other who worked with us, and we developed this project along with the Chinese EPC contractor and with the leading OEMs. We developed this project, we operated, we constructed successfully, and we started operation of that project back in 2024. Now, that was a step in the door, not for only us, but the government of Uzbekistan as well. The trust they placed in us and the trust we placed in the reforms, it literally worked out. And that was a real success story, because those reforms that were introduced by His Excellency, Mr. President, and the team he has put together, consisting of starting from the presidential advisors team to Energy Ministry, to Ministry of Economy and Finance, to Ministry of Investment. We had brilliant people like Mr. Umid in Ministry of Energy, and the regulator and the off-taker. The one mission of that team, the one of the reason why this success story worked is everybody was aligned. Everybody was aligned under the leadership of Mr. President, that when these reforms were introduced after thorough discussions internally, everybody wanted to achieve that goal. Now, with this Sirdarya 1,500 megawatt, after we have delivered that project, Igor, then everybody has seen that this company can deliver. The journey we started in 2020 was with 0 megawatt in the country, and today in 6 years our portfolio is more than 12 gigawatt, 12,000 megawatt in the country, with a total investment value of $15 billion. And what we have heard today from His Excellency Mr. President and the initiatives that are being taken under the government on various, whether it's an infrastructure issue, whether in industry development, bringing more industry into that, that will automatically demand for more power. And we will continue to work with the government of Uzbekistan to support Uzbekistan in meeting their challenges on the power demand. So in addition to that, we have, since we started in 2020, as of today, we are producing our more than 3,000 installed capacity that is producing power is more than 3,000 megawatt, plus the largest battery storage project that we have, that was recently put in operation, which Mr. Umeed was talking, is an essential part of the energy ecosystem, because you have wind, you have solar, but it's an act of God. It's by nature. The wind can blow more or less. The sun may or may not shine. The clouds may hang over your solar panels for a smaller period of time, a larger period of time. There is a need, as you said, for the base load and the battery storage more importantly, because battery storage is, as Mr. Umeed very rightly said, the prices have reduced. And now with these reduced prices, and the prices have not reduced out of the blue, because there is a lot of demand. People have, the industry and the countries and have realized, the regulators have realized, the off-takers have realized that how important that battery storage is. And we have, in addition to this battery storage and PV projects, we have last year, Central Asia's biggest wind power project that was constructed at the same time by us is 1,000 megawatt of wind project in Bukhara region. That has also started operation. In addition to that, our next few projects, Igor, coming back to your question, that are going to be in construction is Samarkand, where we are going to install another 1,000 megawatt of PV project, plus another 1,500 megawatt hour of the battery storage. And what makes us feel proud of how we are contributing into the country's economy, because at the end of the day, I'm going back to, you have stolen a lot of my speech, by the way, Mr. Umeed, is infrastructure. You know, I give an example to students and the newcomers and the trainees who are new to the power sector, that traditionally, conventionally, if you go back 20 years back or 15 years back, people develop and construct power plants near the load center. Load center means demand center. Big cities like Tashkent, Samarkand, Bukhara, because traditionally they were gas-based plants. There is a gas, you put a power plant, you supply the power, that's it. But now renewable does not necessarily, sun does not necessarily shine next to Tashkent or next to Samarkand, or the wind doesn't necessarily blow near the load centers. So these technologies, which are more affordable, and plus it brings a lot of help to the climate change, to give a better future to our next generation, they blow far from the load center. In order to tap into those resources, you need transmission line. If you don't have this transmission line or that network, you will not be able to tap into those resources. And we are the only company, let me put it that way, what we introduced here in Uzbekistan, that we build a project, we develop a project, plus we develop the transmission line as well by us. So we are the only company, Aqua is the only company in Uzbekistan who have so far constructed around 500 kilometers and another 2,000 kilometers under various projects, which I said in Karakal, Pakistan, and Samarkand is also under construction. So with these, we believe that it is going to really help Uzbekistan, instead of building those transmission lines by the state itself, we do it by us and deliver the whole product that will help His Excellency Mr. President initiative and reforms of energy transition. So that was the answer to your first question.
Thank you. And I would particularly mention that you present in all the companies or components of the energy system and types of generation, not only, I would say, gas flaring as a firm capacity,
Correct.
but also maneuvering, but battery storage, and the cleanest way, the greenest way, solar and wind. And the
Correct.
most impressive, maybe later we will discuss with Ebergi this approach, like how you managed to participate in the high voltage lines, because that's a bit of challenge, maybe.
Correct.
Are you-
It is a challenge, to be honest with you, because these transmission line, are constructed cross-country. There are a lot of land-related issues. You have to work with the various municipality, with the Ministry of Economy, with the governorship. We have to make sure that the land, it is owned privately, they are properly compensated, the farmers are proper. And all of these are the values which are very near dear to not only to us, but to our lenders like EBRD, to IFC, to ADB, to AIB, to Japanese bank, which we have brought to the country. So in addition to what we are always saying, that we have added a little bit more value into the country by bringing investors from Japan and China. They are our co-partners on these projects, which we have done. Now, coming back to your second question on youth development and the supply chain. Look, we in Aqua firmly believe that when you go and invest into a country, you just don't go to invest it. One of our moral value is what you give back to the society, what you give back to the country, what do you give back to the community around you working. And there are three areas we have taken that mission on us. There are basically youth development, the talent pool development, and the last thing is localization. Before I go to localization, let me spend a couple of minutes on the youth development and the talent development. Look, I mean, there are a lot of young people who are sitting here. Youth is not merely the leadership of tomorrow. It's not just leadership of tomorrow. These youth and these young people are the energy, the ideas, and the talent that shapes Uzbekistan today's progress. So investing in youth of Uzbekistan is actually investing in the future of Uzbekistan. And this is what we are doing to give back to the society. We have worked with a Shirin college, which is, I'm sure those who are, Uzbek nationals who are familiar with this college, it is the most reputable technical institute for last many decades. So as soon as, and it happens to be in the same region where we developed our first project in Sirdaria, which is in Shirin. So as soon as we entered Sirdaria, we looked at that technical college and found a great opportunity to fulfill our mission of developing the youth and preparing them for the future talent needs and technical needs of the country. So we invested a lot of both capital and human efforts in that college to shape their infrastructure, shape their classes, bring new laboratories, bring new courses, bring new curriculum, and in fact we brought a lot of teachers to train the teachers as well. And during this time of last 6 years, what we have managed to do, we have so far there are 200 students who have actually enrolled in this program. There are more than 100 students who have passed the first course. And I'm proud to say that we have really taken on board a lot of these students who actually graduated from this technical institute. And they are actually serving. And what makes me feel proud, being a father of a daughter, there are so many young girls who actually graduated, and they are actually operating the plant now. Our PV project, our wind project, in the control room. I wish if I had those pictures which I could have shown you on the screen. but they are actually operating it. Boys and girls, and more importantly, the girls. And they're doing it. And the second good thing, there are a lot of investors who have seen the value in this initiative, have started, jumping on the train with us and helping, causing this initiative. That's number one. Number two, again, going back to the same concept, that what are you giving back to the society? I mean, in our projects, for example, I'll give you two projects which we are doing. One is Samarkand 1000 megawatt wind and 1500 megawatt hour of battery storage. And the other was in Karkal, Pakistan. And more importantly, second thing in Shirin College, what we have did, because Shirin College is far away, is in one place, we have taken the initiative to take 100 students from Karkal, Pakistan. We selected them, not 100, 78, let me be very accurate, 78 students from Karkal, Pakistan. We brought them all the way to Shirin, enrolled them, provided them the boarding, so that this talent pool is developed, not concentrated only in one geography of the country. It's spread over the country. So that's what we have, and nobody's asked us. This is again initiative. The second one we have done is local manufacturing. Now this is economy and the employment. In supply chain, we have taken the duty on us with our EPC contractor to work with the manufacturers here, whether it is anything that can be at a smaller scale. There is a skill level available in the country to manufacture. For example, the conductors, transmission line. We all know that rough estimate is, that was, and Umidaka, please correct me if I'm wrong, the rough estimate is Uzbekistan is going to construct 6,000 kilometers or maybe more of the transmission line. Correct?
At least 6,000.
At least 6,000.
Let's give others to speak, please.
Yeah. So, no, I will continue because we feel so proud of it. Okay. So these manufacturers who are producing the conductors, now they are producing the conductors and towers for us. And this is how we have added a lot of, economy, money back into the economy. I honestly thank you for stopping that I keep talking. So no, it's a quite right. So this is how we are trying to do it. Sorry for a short answer.
Thank you for such a comprehensive review of your business activities, not only investment related, but also social developing. But now let's switch our gears and let me turn on to Masdar, a company that's played a major role in shaping Uzbekistan's renewable landscape of the energy sector. Ms. Mariam Rashed Al-Mazroui, Masdar is one of the leading world's companies, leading clean energy world's companies, active across renewables, energy storages in more than 40 countries. Masdar has built a substantial presence in Uzbekistan over the past few years. Looking ahead, what are your goals for the next decade? How you see yourself as a part of this green energy transition of Uzbekistan? But maybe looking back rather forward also. I know that over the last 12 months, you've reached a lot of milestones in Uzbekistan, a lot of new openings. Could you also please share to the audience what you're proud of in Uzbekistan during the last 12 months and your vision for future?
Thank you very, very much for the question. First of all, I'm very happy to be back to my second home, Uzbekistan, and great to again meet our stakeholders here in the beautiful city, Tashkent. So to take first the first questions that you had, let me first as well speak about Masdar, but I'll be precise and short. So Masdar founded 20 years ago as a result of our leadership long-term vision to invest into renewables. So we've been in the industry over 20 years. So far, we have a presence in over 40 countries. We particularly invest in clean energy and renewables, mainly onshore renewables, be it solar PV, onshore wind, and offshore wind as well as battery storage. And sometimes, as everyone mentioned here, we take as well an extra miles to also invest into transmission lines. So, so far we have a portfolio of 65 gigawatts across 40 countries, and we have a very clear target to achieve 100 gigawatts by 2030. Speaking about the region, we're very active in 3 countries in the region, including Uzbekistan. So Uzbekistan was the first entry for us was in 2019 with a very small project in Nurnavoy, 100 megawatt solar PV. Today, we're very proud that we are currently operating more than 20 plus the capacity. So we're currently operating 2,000 megawatts of portfolio, including solar and wind. In Azerbaijan as well, we're very active. We're the largest renewable energy developer in Azerbaijan. We started with a small project, 230 megawatts. Currently, we have 1.2 gigawatt as well. So we're deploying around 1.2 billion US dollar in Azerbaijan. We're also active in Kazakhstan. We're developing one of the largest wind farm in the region, 1 gigawatts wind farm integrated with 600 megawatt hour battery storage. Now zooming in Uzbekistan itself, as I mentioned, we started in 2019. We were actually the first developer to enter Uzbekistan, and we're very proud to get that opportunity, and we've been honored as well to get all the support that we have been receiving from all the stakeholders, including Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Investment, the off-taker, the grid operators. So we're really honored to have that opportunity to develop the first project and open the doors as well for other developers to come and invest in Uzbekistan. As I mentioned, currently we're operating 2,000 megawatt, including solar and wind projects. However, Uzbekistan continues to be our core market. So we're continuing developing additional projects. We have a concrete pipeline to also double our capacity in the country. Over the past year, in December, His Excellency the President inaugurated Nur Bukhara project, which is a 250 megawatt solar PV integrated with the battery storage system, which is the first utility scale project integrated with the battery system. We've also broke the ground for a Gozar solar projects with the 300 megawatt capacity. We're working as well with the Ministry of Energy to develop a standalone battery projects in Navoy region. The first phase with the 600 megawatt hour, and a second phase will come soon as well with another 600 megawatt hour. A new initiative that we're also working on is the development on the RTC. Round the Clock project is a project that Masdar established and developed in Abu Dhabi. The project currently is under development, which is basically providing a 1 gigawatt base load into the grid from a pure, renewable, clean energy. And we're working also with the government to replicate the same concept here in Uzbekistan. We've signed an agreement with the Ministry of Energy in January to develop a round-the-clock project, delivering 500 megawatt base load to the grid. So we continue to work with the Ministry of Energy and other stakeholders to advance our footprint. One thing that I also would like to mention is most recently we've announced a JV with Total Energy, which basically will cover the development of the project in 9 countries, including Uzbekistan. It's a 2.2 billion US dollar 50-50 JV. Through this JV, we will continue the developments of our projects in the region, including Uzbekistan. And if it gives a signal, it gives a signals how Uzbekistan is attracting the world's most ambitious player to co-develop in its future. So that's more or less about our projects and the plan, the pipeline in the country.
And maybe if you have this information about the last 12 months, you had some openings here in Uzbekistan,
yes.
maybe
Correct.
to mention?
We've inaugurated the Nur Bukhara project, which is a 250 megawatt solar PV integrated with the battery storage. We've also broken the ground for the Gozar 300 megawatt solar project, which is currently under construction. We've signed an agreement, the PPA and the PSSA, sorry, and the investment agreement for the Zarafshan standalone battery storage, and of course the RTC that I've mentioned.
Thank you very much. Now when we hear from the president and from the ministry new additions to renewables, now we know who like really contributed. But let me bring one of the longest standing partners of Uzbekistan, company Sojistu, with a very diversified portfolio extending well beyond energy. Mr. Nishikawa, Sojits is a very diversified investor and operator in Uzbekistan. For me, it was a surprise that you joined the country back in the 90s, so it's like quite a surprise for me. And you have the Sirdarya gas flaring station, the project in Navai, transmission infrastructure. So you are active in Uzbekistan for quite a long time. So how do you assess where the Uzbekistan, the country, stands now? And what do you see the most important for the next phase of the development? And maybe if you have time, maybe also to share more information about your projects beyond energy in Uzbekistan. Please.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. To answer your first question about how we see Uzbekistan today. Back in 1990s, our business here was not about a direct investment. We mainly focused on exporting Japanese technology and arranging finance, in which our risk was quite limited. To be honest, it was not right time. It was not a good environment for our direct investment at that time. However, the economic growth over the past 10 years has been very outstanding. And today, Uzbekistan has a very attractive investment environment. It successfully attracts global investors and developers like all of us. For infrastructure projects, we need to invest for 20 years or more. Solid legal framework and fair contracts are necessary, of course. But Sojit has many years, more than 30 years, experience with IPP and PPP projects all over the world, in Southeast Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, Africa, and Australia. From this experience, we know that good contracts are not enough. I believe two key elements make Uzbekistan truly special. First is the government's strong leadership and commitment. In many countries, projects stop or in some cases get cancelled without any reason or announcement that we could understand. But in Uzbekistan, from the president to the ministers and working officials, everyone has great energy. And they work very hard to make projects happen. This strong will allows us to invest our time and resources with confidence. That is quite important for us. And second is credibility. Not just financial, but what I call behavioral credibility. This means how the government actually acts. In long-term projects, problems will happen. In some countries, governments push all the risk onto the private companies when problems arise. That destroys trust. But in Uzbekistan, there is a strong culture of dialogue. When a problem happens, the government and private companies sit down and listen to each other and find a fair and reasonable solution together. This sounds very simple, but it is actually very rare to find. And this mutual trust is the main reason why we choose Uzbekistan and why we commit large investment here. This great environment has accelerated the growth of renewable energy and transition energy in the past few years here. For the next stage, the priority is to achieve the best energy mix based on the master plan. This means balancing base load power, renewables, grid modernization and energy storage and other alternative solutions. To do this quickly, it is important for Uzbekistan to stay attractive to foreign investors. And second point, how our project, what we are doing now. Our energy business has two main sides. First one, on supply side, we are developing renewable energy for decarbonization and also gas-fired development, gas field development and gas power plants as traditional transition energy. Second, on demand side, we focus on reducing energy consumption. That is also important. For example, in the US and Australia, per capita energy consumption is about 1.5 to 2.2 times higher than in Japan. We actually run the business to improve energy efficiency in those countries. We are bringing this same approach to the Uzbekistan. So on the supply side in here, we are developing a 1,000 megawatt wind power project in Navoy. At the same time, we are building is a 1.6 gigawatt Sildaria 2 gas-fired power plant. By using highly efficient technology, this plant will significantly help to reduce the country's total energy consumption. We are also working on the project to modernize and electrify gas compressor stations. This is also help to reduce energy waste. So in both angles, we are developing the project to contribute to the country. Through all these efforts, Sojit is fully dedicated to being a committed and long-term partner for Uzbekistan rather than just one-time investor. We look forward to contributing to the country's energy transition, not just by building robust physical infrastructure, but also by fostering a resilient cultural partnership, continuous dialogue, and mutual trust. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would particularly mention your point about energy efficiency and decarbonization. That definitely helps to build, I would say, from the beginning, very, I would say, sustainable energy system, not only at the upstream part, generation part, but also at the consumption part. But now we'll logically switch to those who are really gives money for all these projects, all these initiatives on all sides. And let me greet Ms. Kilic EBRD, who is director of EBRD. We know that EBRD is one of the largest institutional investors in the country, which has been for several years one of the key investors. And you financed a lot of projects here across the whole value chain, renewable storages, transmission lines, and you definitely have very clear understanding what are the challenges for the country to attract money, to make the projects bankable. And could you please maybe elaborate your view on it and what's already achieved and maybe what's missed? We have this deputy minister here, maybe we will see new decrees soon related to funding and making the project bankable. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I'm very happy to be here in the Tashkent International Investment Forum, and thank you very much for being me in this very important panel, because I have all my esteemed clients with me here, and we have a very good experience of working together. And of course, with our Minister of Energy, we have very strong relationship over the years. Maybe briefly on EBRD, it is the IFI, with the shareholding of the 77 countries, which means it's like a big multinational financing institution, and our main purpose is to support the development of the countries that we are operating. Currently, EBRD is operating in 44 countries with the recent inclusion of 6 sub-Saharan countries and Iraq. And we are basically active all the way from the eastern central, south and eastern central Europe, all the way to Central Asia and Mongolia and Middle East and Africa. And of course, I'm covering Turkey, Caucasus, Central Asia and Mongolia. And I need to say Uzbekistan is my jewel country among all. You may ask why, because Uzbekistan really takes the lead in the renewable energy and green transition in the Central Asia, and I show Uzbekistan as a role model in any of the countries that I am responsible for. And since 2018, we have financed close to 7 gigawatts of renewable energy projects in this country, and close to 5 gigawatt is in solar, and close to 2 gigawatt is in wind and storage. And on top of this, we work very closely with state-owned enterprises, including NEGU, for the transmission and substations and digitalization of the transmission grid. And we provided 500 million euro financing there as well. Having such a strong investor base in this country is not a luck, or it's not just a coincidence. It comes with the commitment of the government. Having the government authorities being fully committed with their renewable energy strategy, putting the regulations in a good order, and then keeping this commitment on the regulation and not changing the regulations, but showing the stability in the country with the regulatory framework is the main reason why we have all this strong investor base in this country. And I need to say it's not easy task, and I need to say Uzbekistan is really doing this very well, and that's why we are where we are with the renewable energy investments in this country. Having such a good development and such a big investor base already doing all these renewable energy investments, of course, infrastructure side of the energy becomes very critical. And I mean, generation is of course very important, but after generation, distributing this energy to the consumers and the users, very critical. While doing that, you need to have the very flexible systems, because renewable energy is not base load, and you need to make sure that it has the necessary flexibility at the same side, strength in the grid system and transmission system to make sure that it can be delivered uninterruptedly. So that's why, as the Minister has mentioned, going forward, one of the big tasks of the country and our authorities and NEGO is the transmission infrastructure, strengthening, expansion, and digitalization of the energy infrastructure. And of course, storage is very key, but as you have heard also from our investors here, storage is also with the similar structures developed for the renewable energy. Its investments are on the storage side is moving on a very steady and in a speedy manner. Coming to the transmission, by the way, this transmission investment need is not specific for Uzbekistan. You know, in any country who is moving fast in developing their capacity, the same issue becomes a bottleneck. We are, for example, in Turkey, we also have exactly the similar problem. Transmission side is the main bottleneck for the future of the renewable energy investments. Of course, this is a very big task for the TSOs of the countries, and in the case of Uzbekistan, it is NEGO. And doing all this transmission investments in one go is not easy. It's a very challenging task. And not only just from the financing point of view, but also from technical capacity point of view. So that's why bringing in the private sector into also the transmission side becomes critical. And we are not reinventing the wheel when I'm saying this, and actually this is already done very successfully in Europe and in Latin America. There are very good examples of this. Just to give you some examples, for example, bringing in the capital market instruments for financing the transmission investments is one tool which will at least decrease the pressure on the sovereign financing side. However, in order to do that, of course, first financial standing of the TSO needs to be strong. And to do that, you need to have really a very cost-reflective tariff scheme in such a way that the cost of the transmission and distribution is reflected into the tariffs, so that the financial standing of the TSOs and distribution company is strong enough to be able to go to the capital markets, show the strength of their financial standing, and be able to access to the capital markets. By the way, as EBRD, we are not just debt provider, but we are also anchor investor when it comes to capital market instruments, and we generally also play a very key role in setting up the structure of the bond issue, and then take 20% of the total bond issue as an anchor, and then try to attract other private investors to invest in the capital markets. So this is one area which can be definitely used as a tool to bring in the private financing into the Uzbekistan to realize the transmission investments. Another tool which is successfully seen in countries, and actually last week I was talking to some of the investors in that respect, using in a way the PPP model, but it's not the same as the typical PPP models, or let's put it this way, bring in the private investors into the transmission grid investments. There are availability-based structures which can be used for this purpose. And what does that mean is to use the know-how, technical excellence, and human capital, and of course the speedy delivery of the private sector to realize the transmission grid investments as well. So this is another model which can be used. Of course, not all of them can be done like that, but a portion of those investments to be done in the transmission side can be realized through the involvement of the private sector, such that private sector financing used to realize these investments. And actually right now I'm trying to discussing with various ministries that I am responsible for to bring this model into the realization of this transmission investments, because otherwise if we just wait and put all the pressure on TSOs like NEGU, it's a very big homework, and it's a very challenging homework, and the investment need is huge. It needs to be delivered quickly so that it does not become a bottleneck in the development of the renewable energy side. So having said that, I want to also touch upon the distribution side. By the way, Uzbekistan has already started with the Samarkand distribution company. You know, for example, in Turkey, we have all the distribution network is fully privatized at the moment, and it is run by the private sector. Of course, there regulation becomes very important in order to attract the private sector investment in the distribution networks. And you need to have a very good tariff scheme, which is RAB-based, and it needs to be also stable regulation, such that it doesn't change from one day to the next, which to bring those investors. And actually, 2 months ago, we had our dear Uzbek delegation visiting our Turkish authorities and getting the, what was the lessons learned, what was the difficulties they have experienced in Turkey in that respect, so that they can at least use all the lessons learned in order not to make the mistakes that Turkey did in the past, and then they can start delivering very speedy manner. And from that point of view, Samarkand distribution project is a very good starting point. But of course, what is important there is this tenders needs to be organized in a well manner, regulations needs to be done in a defined manner, and so that there is on the one side competition, at the same time investors know what kind of investments they have to make and then tariff is reflective of the investments there. And we are working very closely with our Minister of Energy as well as the regulatory authority right now for the on the regulation side for the energy market regulation law, and we are happy to support the authorities there in that respect. So I'm seeing that future is very good cooperation of the public and the private sector side to achieve all these bottlenecks and to achieve a steady growth of the countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kilic. You mentioned two very important points, how to finance both high voltage lines, but also distribution lines. And now that's definitely maybe what wakes up the Deputy Minister during nights, during this peak season, hot season, a lot of energy consumption and a lot of pressure on the distribution lines. So definitely if your advices how to finance and implement would work, definitely will be less hairs on the head of the top authorities. And we've covered solar, gas, and now maybe grid and infrastructure. Let me bring a new topic for Uzbekistan, nuclear. And Uzbekistan is introducing this topic first time in the history, and we have Ms. Bilbao Eliman, the World Nuclear Association leader, and the association represents the global nuclear industry and promotes nuclear industry as a part of reliable, low-carbon energy mix. The question to you, you know that we know all that Uzbekistan has committed to developing its first nuclear power station in the nearest future. What may be, how would you describe the role of the nuclear in the modern energy system in the world, and what should Uzbekistan consider as it pursues the combined pathway of this nuclear and traditional energy? Please.
Well, thank you, Igor, for the question. It's truly a pleasure to join this distinguished panel. It is also a pleasure to be back in Uzbekistan, in particular in this very momentous time when, as you heard the minister explain just a couple of weeks ago, we actually poured concrete on the first small modular reactor in Uzbekistan. So we welcome Uzbekistan into the global nuclear family. So this is a very momentous occasion. So as you heard, World Nuclear Association, we are the international body that represents the global nuclear industry. And this is, I want to maybe explain something that I think is important. Our members are in 44 countries in all continents, but represents the entire value chain for nuclear energy. This means from uranium mining all the way to use fuel management and decommissioning, including, of course, utilities, including, of course, the supply chain, the vendors, the designers, but also maybe transport or nuclear finance or nuclear insurance, basically the entire ecosystem. So obviously this is very important because, as you very well know, nuclear energy is currently the largest source of carbon-free electricity in OECD countries. Is the second at a global level, second only to hydropower. So clearly nuclear energy has a very important role to play at a global level to well, first of all, achieve these sustainability goals, climate change goals, but also make sure that we achieve this energy independence, energy security that we all have been awoken in the last few months, years. And then finally, something that you mentioned earlier, this equity, making sure that everybody, everywhere has access to this abundant, affordable, 24/7 carbon-free electricity. So I think it's very exciting to see Uzbekistan joining the global nuclear family. As you've heard, Uzbekistan is going to be building a complex, a very exciting plant. It's going to have 2 small modular reactors, 55 megawatts each, and then 2 large reactors, 1,000 megawatts each. And the first one is going to be online in 2029, so this is already, well, tomorrow. And what I think is very exciting is when all these units are online, they are going to provide over 17 billion kilowatt hour annually with only 2.1 gigawatts of capacity. So this tells you about the density and the high capacity factor of nuclear energy. So, you know, with only 2.1 gigawatts of nuclear energy, we are going to be able to meet 15% of the electricity in Uzbekistan. And this is actually going to be fabulous because it's going to help Uzbekistan to actually reduce the reliance of natural gas. I mean, obviously, we are increasing our renewable portfolio, but currently 75% of the electricity in Uzbekistan comes from natural gas. So obviously, as we want to provide additional access to this growing population to electricity, and as we want to industrialize, having, as I said, abundant, affordable 24/7 carbon-free electricity is going to be essential. So, you know, I think it's very important that we put this in perspective because I think that the energy transition is a portfolio challenge. It is not a technology competition. We really are going to need all the carbon-free and clean technologies that we can. And each country is going to have a different energy mix depending on their natural endowments and, well, many other things. So I think it's not a matter of choosing between different technologies, it's actually working them all together. And obviously nuclear energy plays a very important role together with renewables because obviously it provides the firm, dispatchable, baseload, carbon-free capacity that we are going to make sure that we have in order to have this stable, reliable, resilient system. And actually, as I said before, this is going to be actually helping to address some of the issues that we discussed. So nuclear has a very, very small footprint, so it's going to use very little space. And it's going to allow us to have less investment in additional capacity because, of course, as I say, it's so dense. It provides such a high capacity factor, over 95% capacity factor. So this means that we are going to need less additional capacity, and also the overall system costs are going to be much lower. We are not going to really need to invest as much as in transmission and distribution because nuclear energy is actually going to provide a lot of that. So I think that that is some of the importance role of nuclear in the grid. But if I may, I want to add something that perhaps is not as well recognized by many people. And it is this. Nuclear energy, yes, produces electricity, but also produces heat, steam. And this is a game changer when it comes to decarbonizing and energizing the entire economy. So you know, I've been participating in a couple of sessions where we were talking about accelerating how Uzbekistan and Central Asia is making the most of all these critical minerals, all these natural resources that we have in this part of the world, but doing that in a way that we don't just dig up the material, but we actually process it and we add value. Obviously, to do that, we are going to need energy. So this is where, once again, where nuclear electricity and heat is going to help to energize and provide additional industrial capabilities in these areas. And we are seeing this also that, for example, oil and gas. The petrochemical industry is looking at nuclear energy as a very important source to help decarbonize scope 1 and 2 in the front side of the cycle, upstream, midstream, downstream, and also in some countries when we are looking at carbon capture and sequestration to energize carbon capture and sequestration. So again, it's going to be very helpful in countries like, well, Uzbekistan and many others in Central Asia, where we have these resources. We want to exploit them, make the most of them with the smallest carbon footprint as possible. But it's not just that. We can produce hydrogen, ammonia, sustainable aviation fuels with this carbon-free electricity and heat. We can produce fresh water, as we are doing in many countries. And there are many other industries like the metallurgical industry, the chemical industry, paper paper, ceramics, etc., that are also looking at using nuclear energy for electricity and heat. So again, to me, it is a great combination together with all these other fabulous renewable energy sources that we've been discussing already.
Thank you very much for such a comprehensive view on the role of the nuclear in the energy system. And let me to bring our discussion to the close. Today's conversation highlighted both the scale of the opportunity and the scale of the challenges facing Uzbekistan and wider region. I would mention for me like three key messages like from what I've heard from you, dear panelists. First, the challenge is no longer the simply building generation capacity, it's building the broader energy system around it, grid storage, market mechanisms and capabilities needed to make it all work together. Second, you need to have this balanced energy mix where renewables, conventional generation, nuclear power storage and future technologies each play their particular role in the energy system. And first, like from our banking part of the panel, capital is available, but attracting it at scale requires right regulation, regulatory frameworks, strong institution, and the bankable projects developed with all the challenges in the country. And my sincere thanks to all of our distinguished guests, panelists, for sharing their views, insights, and thank you, audience, for participating in the discussion, like presenting here. Thank you very much.